Lights, camera, action.
Hey everyone, it's Tyler for another pitch in the car. And as some of you might have seen, Jania and I have gone down a Star Wars rabbit hole. Started with Star Wars Day and conversations. We have recorded commentaries for Revenge of the Sith, which I'm really proud of because I love getting nerdy with my wife and the conversations that we have. We then tried to do one with the kids for Attack of the Clones. That was for during dinner, and it spiraled into mayhem, but it's always fun. And since then, Solomon, we did not do one for the Phantom Menace. We've kind of included conversation of the Phantom Menace in our other two because we watched that with the kids on Star Wars Day, and we built a fort in the living room and all camped out together. But since then, Solomon and Selah have been on a big Star Wars kick. Selah has really latched onto Ahsoka Tano as we have begun reviewing the Clone... We're not reviewing, but like rewatching the Clone Wars, and then we're just going to keep watching Star Wars. So it's pretty exciting. And as we're going through it, of course, my brain's always thinking, and we're talking and stories and things. And, I've really fell more in love with the Tales of the Jedi, Tales of the Empire short vignette format. And it's as much as I did enjoy Tales of the Empire, I thought that it lacked by using character that we didn't care as much about the Morgan Elsbeth character. I would have preferred a Tales, something where give us some information on Balin would be cool, and how he got to where he is would be interesting. But it's cool. But the Tales of the Jedi, I really love the Count Dooku episodes because I find Count Dooku a really interesting character. So here are some of my Star Wars pitches. And, I also look at something that Marvel has done that I really like, that I wish they would do, are those Marvel specials. Werewolf by Night was an awesome one-shot special. We didn't need a whole film for Werewolf by Night or Man-Thing, okay? But that special, perfect. The holiday special for Guardians, that was cool. It's not a on rotation every Christmas thing, but I enjoyed it. Okay? So I'm going to use that kind of mentality here. My first up is a special on Darth Vader. I have been deep diving into the Marvel Vader comics. The Gred Pak is amazing. The story takes place at the end moments of Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. And then there's another series, and I can't remember I think it was Charles Soule, of Vader that takes place right at the moments of Revenge of the Sith. Now, I'm a big fan of the Dark Lord Rising. I guess that's now an extended Legends book, which was started at the Revenge of the Sith's final moments. So my pitch about this now is I've retweaked it over time because we've had canonized things come out, much like Obi-Wan, is to have Vader, and it really be a psychological struggle as well, but in this special of Anakin, basically the rest of Anakin dying, the mental idea that Vader destroys Anakin, and how he is consumed by Darth Vader because that's how he fuels his hate. And I would take from these comics because they have done great stories. And elements that I would bring to life is I would use a Tony Stark type thing of showing Anakin on the inside of the suit. And I would play it just for the audience to understand the concept. I would have Anakin inside the suit, and it would be kind of Hayden, as we know Hayden. And then I would have Vader on the outside. But then as we went through the arc of the story, the Anakin on the inside would start, he'd have the Sith eyes, and then he'd start to look bad. And then by the end, you would have burnt Anakin on the inside, and you would kind of do with the camera, pull out as he's giving his talk from his Anakin voice, pull out to being Vader on the outside, showing that they are now one and that he is completely Vader. And I would have him with the formation. It would end with the kind of formation of the Inquisitors. It would be Vader going to hunt down Jedi, and it would be a story of him getting his red lightsaber, and we would explore the idea of the living Kyber and him infusing and corrupting a Kyber crystal with his hate, his emotion. That would be a big element. So we would end with, red saber Vader, and it would also hit on the stuff of, we would see the twisted relationship that is Palpatine and Vader, and how Palpatine is always manipulating Vader, always pushing him down as a means of teaching him to fuel his hate, because hate is power, and the struggles that he goes through. And it would address the different things that psychologically he has to do to deal with his hate, and the fact that Vader's number one person that he hates is himself and the Emperor, and how he goes back between that, and how in one breath he looks at the Emperor as his master because it's all he has, but then in another, he hates the Emperor more than anything. And the way that the galaxy views Vader, and the way that the Vader is seen to other people of the Imperials. So that's really like the first kind of story hour special, Vader I would create. Maybe a direct or a movie. I don't know, because I think there's a lot of story there, but I like the idea of these specials, and I think you could make it work. Vader's armor, and Vader tweaking his armor because he likes to fix things and work on robotics and making his armor better and stronger, and how he has to deal with feeling less of the Force because of the loss of his limbs. So he, uses more of his anger and emotion, and his Force use becomes more brutal. One of the stories that I liked was the idea that Vader had to adapt his fighting style to being more powerful because he didn't have the quick movements and things that he did as Anakin. And now I would say that's my first one. My second one, I'll change where my first one is. My second one would be Vader creating the Inquisitors. And like I said, this could be a Vader series or a series of vignettes, all about 40 minutes. And it would be about the hunt for the Jedi, and the Jedi that they know that are still out in the galaxy. And Vader using the Inquisitors and corrupting people who the Jedi rejected or who turned on the Jedi, and showing them how to use the evil hate, but not Sith. Like there would be, and I'll get there, to help him flush out Jedi so that he's not the one having to responsibly go and hunt down every Jedi. And I think that would be interesting, starting the Grand Inquisitors and the others, and making sure we don't negate anything that's happened. And then having, on the flip side of that, I would say right near about the time of Rogue One, right before the events of Rogue One, you have Vader meet with the last of the Inquisitors, and we see Vader basically execute all the Inquisitors because he feels all the Jedi have been hunted and destroyed. The only Jedi that he believes, I would do some storyline where Yoda fakes his death type thing and tricks an Inquisitor thinking that they kill him and everything with the Force. The only Jedi he believes is still alive is Obi-Wan, and part of him can't allow Obi-Wan to be killed. He has to do it. He has this conscious battle, but he doesn't want the Inquisitors because he doesn't want the idea of the Inquisitors then to start training apprentices, much like we saw previously where Dooku went and was training Ventress. It took me a moment, sorry. That the idea that there's always things happening in the shadows. And even Vader doesn't want to train his own apprentice because a Sith apprentice is designed to overthrow and destroy their master. And Vader's all about being all-powerful and consuming. So Vader would only want to overthrow the Emperor. And he doesn't want anyone to challenge him at all. So Vader destroys all the Inquisitors. All right, so there's my Vader type stuff. Next, so point 2 is like the story of Dooku. And I've said this for a while. I never believed that Dooku is a true Sith. He never has the Sith eyes. He doesn't seem really full of hate, anger, and rage. He looks more like a corrupted Jedi that the Emperor uses as a political pawn to be the figurehead of the Separatist movement, to give cred to the Separatists, an organized leader, and someone to help further the plot, because he's Darth Tyrannus and it's barely ever talked about or acknowledged. And I feel like Dooku was, we look at the shorts that were given to us, he was so against where the Jedi were going and what had happened that he fell down a rabbit hole here. Now, my question, and I was rolling with this, is Dooku really truly believes in the Separatist movement and the Republic of seeing the Republic, and that's highlighted in the Tales of the Jedi, where we see Dooku's disgust with how the Republic is. And I'm fine with that. Like, I'm not against that at all. My question comes to, he tells Obi-Wan that the Republic is under control of a Sith Lord, or influenced by a Sith Lord, and that he tells Obi-Wan, together we can destroy the Sith. So is he trying to play double agent? What was his purpose for telling this to Obi-Wan? And my other question is, does Dooku know that Chancellor Palpatine is Darth Sidious? You think so. And I'm not 100% sold because of how Dooku reacts when he's fighting Anakin in episode 3 and his hands get cut off, and then Anakin has his head and the Emperor tells him to do it. And he looks the way he looks at the Emperor before Anakin, chops his head off. I'm like, why doesn't he say something? Like, my master, save me! My master, nothing. There's no speech from him. Nothing like, oh, I saw your plan all along, Lord Sidious. Nothing that kind of shows that he knew. So I really feel like Dooku was a pawn. And I think that a Dooku series may help a younger Dooku, with Qui-Gon. Okay? That would be interesting. Okay? And very much in a vignette. And this could be an animation. My Vader, I want live action. I should point that. But this would be fine in animation. Just filling in that story a little bit more. And as I stated earlier, I'm rewatching the Clone Wars, so I know I'll get some more Dooku through the Clone Wars. Number 3. This would be a vignette, but I think the idea of when the Sith and Jedi began, and understand the concept of the Force is for everyone, and people are Force sensitive, but they formed a religion, a belief system of rules and regulations around who can have the Force and what it is to be a Force user and what you subscribe yourself to, much like monks, and how you had a group that then was kind of split because one side channeled their emotions for the light while one side kept using their anger and hatred and those emotions and kept going darker. And you see that when they split and how they battle each other. But then you see that as the first vignette, okay? The second one, little short, would be kind of seeing the Sith become so corrupt that they start killing each other, and why they create the rule of 2, and how that really works for them as a belief that they understand their hatred is so powerful and their quest for power, this emptiness inside themselves, that they can't allow to share with anyone, but they still have to pass on their teachings and knowledge to somebody else. So that would be my next one. And then my third little here would be the creation of who first announced the prophecy of the One and what that was about. Because one of my best quotes is Yoda when he states, a prophecy misread may be. And the idea that what was the exact words and who did the prophecy of the ones that would be balanced to the Force. Because the idea that you could hear something and interpret it to your own mindset, which I think is what the Jedi did, because they said, that you were supposed to bring balance to the Force, not leave it in darkness. And that, I think, balance is light and dark. It is both. And I think the Jedi misunderstood it. So it'd be interesting to see what the Sith would say about that. If they knew this prophecy or whatever. So, and maybe give some actual closure to the creation of Anakin from the dark side of the Force. Okay? And the idea of the Skywalker family's draw to the dark side. All right, number 4. Told you I got ideas. Number 4 pitch is I want either a Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan series of Jedi Master and Apprentice, which would probably be the easiest because you can get someone to look like a young Liam Neeson and a child actor to be a young Ewan McGregor, or do an animated, and once again, that would be awesome in live action, okay? The Sith stuff, if you want to do it animated, that's fine too. And I would throw out an animated series of Anakin and Obi-Wan. I think there are some great stories in the comics and in some old EU books of Anakin as Obi-Wan's Padawan. And I think that would be awesome to see in a short animated series. Because all that just helps fuel that when we get to Revenge of the Sith, we feel their fallout even more. We watched the deleted scene from Revenge of the Sith where Anakin and Obi-Wan were basically giving each other baseball signals about how to attack. And it's just showing more of them in alignment together. And that's something that in the Clone Wars, you see this bond between Ahsoka and Anakin. And I want to see that more with Obi-Wan and Anakin. Because in Attack of the Clones, much like Revenge of the Sith, we have an opening thing with both of them together. Then they're separated on side quests for the movie. And then they're brought back together at the end. So I want to see more of the adventures that make Anakin and Obi-Wan so great together. And exploring the relationship. Because I have said that Obi-Wan, I think, struggled with trying to be the master and Anakin his apprentice, when Obi-Wan always looked like Anakin as a brother. Because there always was strict lines between master and apprentice between Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. Anakin often referenced to Obi-Wan as being like his father, closest thing like a father. So that shows you that Anakin's always searching for a more fatherly figure. And that's part of why he goes with Sidious, Palpatine, is because he's always searching for that father-like figure that's missing in him. Thus, bringing out the father in him when he saves Luke. All right, next pitch. This is a twofold story. Now, I've watched Andor. It's good, but it's not my favorite. It doesn't kind of hook me. It took me and Jania like 2 years to finish it just because other things got in the way and it just didn't hook you the way that a lot of other things do. Also because I like Star Wars for the Jedi, the ideology, that battle. And that was completely absent in Andor. It was more of the war for Star Wars. So the way they did that storyline, though, is you're seeing Mon Mothma with a group of characters really starting the rebellion while we're looking at Cassian Andor in his journey to joining the rebellion and all that. And I say that because my next pitch comes with something like I really greatly appreciate The Mandalorian doing is this past season of The Mandalorian, where The Mandalorian has done really well to tie elements of the prequels and the sequels all together, that everything works. And so my pitch would be, I don't know what my title would be yet, because I need to find a title that really works. But it's Luke Skywalker starting his Jedi Academy. And the twofold storyline is we get to see in plot A is Luke in his new Jedi Academy on Yavin. And that would eventually lead to us meeting a young Ben Solo. And then in a season, I think you need at least 3 seasons of this. And then like season 3 is, leads Ben to be part of the Knights of Ren. I don't need a Ben Solo, miniseries, unless you wanted to do that. But I feel like you could do it in this leading to the events. What I need to see how Luke started the Jedi, and part of the problem is Luke represented a new way of the Jedi teaching. I don't exactly agree with everything that was done in The Last Jedi with Luke, because I needed the story to help me get there. But part of Luke's problem, it seemed, is that he went back and started to try to teach the way the Jedi originally did. And we know that the Jedi were wrong. And that was part of their whole story, is they had given into fear in a backwards amount. And Janine and I talk about this all in our Revenge of the Sith commentary. But the idea is Luke starts teaching the ways of the Jedi the way the Jedi originally were taught. Luke represented a new way. That's why Obi-Wan did not raise Luke and taught him later in life, because he needed to understand emotion and feelings and right and wrong, and that you can experience anger, but it doesn't have to control you. You're allowed to love, but you need to understand that you can control that, and you need to experience that. And I think that's what Luke was supposed to go on to do, was to create a new Jedi. But he has the sacred texts, and he had went backwards in his Jedi teachings. And I want to see the order of him starting this new academy, having a small group, starting to train new Jedi. I would introduce the Mara Jade character. And of course, you'd have to tweak some things, but the idea that Luke falls in love, but then turns and rejects that because it's not the Jedi way, but it should be the new Jedi way, and what that deals with. Because I need to find the way that we get the bitter Luke. We need to talk about how the Skywalker family has a draw to the dark side. The men are drawn to the dark side. Return of the Jedi touches, that's why Luke wears black. He was being drawn to the dark side, and he had to fight that. So these are the themes I would include in this series as Luke goes about creating his new Jedi Academy. In my story, I would definitely have an episode with Luke and Ahsoka, and them talking about Anakin, and Ahsoka getting to tell Luke about his father that he never knew, and how Ahsoka has more tied to his father than he does. And I think they would have a great bond. I'd even let Luke interact with Ezra and the idea of who these Jedis are and stuff, and their journey. And then, we would build up through Luke's academy. Like I said, we would meet a young Ben Solo and the struggles that he has. And then eventually his turn to the dark side. And, it would end with the destruction of Luke's Jedi temple and Ben becoming Kylo Ren. But, so that's, like I said, my whole A plot of the series. My B plot kind of thing is we would see the New Republic. One of the biggest things that got me in The Force Awakens is Kylo Ren and the First Order not only destroy the New Republic, they wipe out all of the major planets of the New Republic, thus throwing the galaxy into complete chaos. Because they destroy Coruscant and all the inner rim planets. Now, the sequel trilogy never touches on the fact that the First Order, it doesn't sweep in and take control and become the Empire. They're not the ruling body of the galaxy, much like the Empire. Okay, in the Last Jedi, it really feels like these are two small factions that are fighting each other: the Resistance and the First Order. And the galaxy's just like, whatever, they're doing their own thing. But we should acknowledge how much in chaos the galaxy is and how the First Order is now gaining power. That should have been in the films. But in my series, we're going to look at how the First Order is looked at as nothing. And kind of a reverse the way that the Empire looked at the rebellion when it first started. So we're where the Empire is in control. They see these little pockets of rebels. They're like, whatever. We're going to look at the Republic is now in control, the New Republic, and there's these pockets of things happening that is becoming the First Order, and the First Order is beginning to rise. And eventually we will see where Leia realizes that something's going on and starts to form the resistance, because the Republic will not deal with it. Thus tying kind of into where we get with the sequels. Because I'm all about continuity. And I think these are stories that just help fill in the gaps because of the hatred towards Luke's behavior. But we have to get Luke there, and I know that in age, things change, perspectives change on life. But if we really show Luke battling with his conscience and who he is and what's happened, with him forming his Jedi Academy and what led him to ignite his lightsaber. And I think if you did it in the context of an episode, you could really get it much better than the way it was presented in The Last Jedi. You could see it from Luke's point of view, and then you could see it from Ben's point of view. And we could actually see where Ben was headed and what Luke was struggling with, and like little conflicts building up to that moment to really help sell us on how Luke really broke down and needed to cut himself off from the Force because of his failures. Much like the way Yoda did. You looking at it, Yoda had his failure with Dark Sidious and then just retreated to Dagobah. He didn't try to join the rebels. He didn't try to keep fighting till like his last breath. So there's a parallel there. And I think that's a rich story. But these are my Star Wars pitches for a new, stories in the television realm. I think Star Wars films need to be quick, fast-paced, and big and grandioso. I think these ideas can be worked into films, but I think on the television way would be really great. Let me know what you think. Hit me up. JTY on Twitter. Jtypatrick on Twitter, X. Or hit me up on all the Krypton Report socials. You'll find me over there from our flagship podcast. But let me know your thoughts on these Star Wars pitches. All right? May the Force be with you.